You are, whether it's morning, evening, midday, midnight, and you're watching us. We are here to listen to a guest who's come to talk to us today to tell us something because this is Now Tell Us. And I'm just reminding you, if you're here for the first time, you can get past episodes and future episodes at nowtellus.com of this episode. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever sit one day and wonder, what is life all about? Is my life coded? Now, our guest today is going to talk to us about codes in life. This is Now Tell Us, and I'm Anthony Morore, welcoming you. Here we go. Hello, Babs. How are you?
Hey, Anthony, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing good, and I'm glad to see you here to be
Awesome,
in our episode because you're going to tell us a lot of things that we are expecting from you. Now,
awesome.
please, before we even get started, we'd like to know who is Babs?
Well, thank you again for having me on the show. Babs is a little kid from the continent of Africa who, over the past couple of decades, has grown through life's thick and thin and
Mhm.
has come to a place in life where he currently serves as a strategist, a strategy consultant, an author, and the convener of Cracking the Life Code. Essentially, I like to describe myself as a strategist, a speaker, and an entrepreneur.
Wow, that's quite a good description. And we are here to listen to some strategies and especially on how to, because I was looking around and I discovered that this is not only your passion, this is not something that you just say, but you've also written a book on the same title, Cracking the Life Code. So I believe that we have some great things hidden in these codes that you are going to help us unravel. And so we are honored to have you here. Now, if we can start by, now you told us that you've been all around and had experiences, good and bad. How was it in your younger years when you were growing up? If we would like, you would like to let us into your life.
Well, growing up for me was very interesting. So it was a mixture of two sides of the world. So
Hmm.
as a child, I experienced the abject poverty, and also in my growing up days, I experienced a lot of affluence. So I lived in the intersection of both worlds.
Hmm.
As a little kid, one of the very important things that I remember my family and my parents instilling in us was education. You had to study. You had to do well in school. You had to be responsible, so you can grow up to become responsible adults. So I'm very privileged and honored to have come from a family where there was a father and a mother at home, both of which have decided they wanted to raise kids who are better than themselves, who do better for themselves in life than
Hmm.
theirs. So that led me to the thinking that every generation has to be an improvement over the former generation. So this was the goal for my parents. It was not the easiest childhood. I was born on the continent of Africa, Nigeria specifically, at a
Hmm.
time where there was a lot of devastation. There was a lot of killing, there was a lot of poverty, and everything that surrounded my birth and my childhood was really dark and sad. And so I was raised in that environment. But the one thing my parents decided to do was to ensure that they gave up everything they had to ensure that I and my two brothers had the best quality of life possible within their means. Not
Hmm.
so much, but they gave the best that they could. One day I ran into the room and I saw my mom crying. And I asked her, "Why are you crying?" And she told me she had received the bad news from her mom and that it was devastating to her because she was not in a place where she could offer help to her mom. That broke my heart. It broke
Mm-hmm.
my heart watching my mom tear up because she couldn't help her mother. So that day, although I was very young, I made a decision. I said to myself that I would do everything within my power to ensure that I build a life that enables me to offer help to the people that I care about. So the people in my life and my loved ones. And so I began this journey at a very early age, trying to understand how do I build a life that is beautiful, that's wonderful, that allows me to provide help to the
Mm-hmm.
people that I care about. And that's when one very beautiful thing also is the fact that mom is a library scientist. And so she was surrounded by books. I see a bookshelf right behind you. Now
Mm-hmm.
that's I was raised inside of books because my mom worked in the library, so she gave us access to books, and because they wanted us to have a lot of education. And I was a very introverted kid. I didn't talk a lot. I didn't socialize a lot. I was always left with my own thoughts and in my head most of the time. So I spent a lot of time reading books. So
Mm-hmm.
read and read. And there was only one thing I wanted to find out. I just wanted to find out from the books that I was reading how to change the circumstances that surrounded my upbringing. How can I move my life forward? How can I change my reality? How can I, you know, build a life that's successful, that's prosperous, and that's more meaningful? And as I continued to read all these different books, self help, personal growth, personal development, then I started to discover what could be the key to help me unlock the life that I'm looking for. That was
Mm-hmm.
when I discovered that one key is my mindset. And I was like, wow, so really the difference between very successful people and not so successful people is really the mindset. It's not the family they were born into. It's
Mm-hmm.
not they have an education or not. It's not whether they have religion or not. The one thing that distinguishes very successful people from not so successful people is their mind. And once I discovered that key, I said, great. And now I began to do a lot of research. How do I shift my mindset? How do I move my mind? How do I change my perspective from lack to abundance, from weakness to strength, from feeling of like a victim to thinking about prosperity and becoming victorious? How do I shift my mindset? And that was
Mm-hmm.
when I began all the research and the studies, and I began to work on nourishing my mind through my college days all the way through grad school. And when I started my career, I just continued to invest in myself, personal growth, personal development. So while my friends were out partying in college, I spent a lot of time just building myself and setting goals for myself and building the life that I wanted. So when I got out of college, began my career, I just continued on that path. So after over 20 years of building this personal growth journey and this personal development, I had learned a lot of lessons through the course of these 20 years. And so when COVID hit in 2020, and some of us went from being on the plane 2, 3 times a week to being in pajamas all day, every day. And so I
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of opportunities to put down my thoughts on paper. So I started writing. I wrote 4 hours a day every day to ensure that I was able to create the book called Cracking the Life Code. The idea is really to help somebody else, maybe another little kid somewhere on the backside of the wilderness of Africa who's thinking, hey, how do I change my life? How do I move from where I'm at right now to a better place? I wanted to give that kid or anyone else the opportunity to learn some of the lessons that I learned in life and then maybe travel that same path and change their lives simply by changing their mindsets, their beliefs, and their behaviors.
Mm. Beautiful. And there's so much that you've covered in that section. And one of the things that I got from there is the mindset of your parents and the mindset that we should also have about improving on a daily basis, such that the challenges that our parents went through, or the challenges that I experienced during my time, are not the same challenges that my children are going to face. And it starts with me, it starts with the individual to think of the position they are at, realize that they are in a position that they shouldn't be, and make the necessary changes to go into where they want to go. Now, another thing I want to mention, because you talked about writing your book during COVID, isn't it interesting that during one of the toughest times in the human history is when I have had so many and such great things that people have done, like writing books, like starting companies, taking that 2 years or so, and thinking of the future, thinking of where they are and doing something about it, and thinking about humanity, doing something towards helping humanity uh, face the world or face life in a positive way. So, and it's not everything that you've covered there. I ask the viewers or the listeners to contribute, to add a comment, or to ask a question about what we've covered up to this place, up to this point. Now, we are dealing with the Cracking the Life Code. This is a book that I thought that we should talk a bit about with Babs. And since he's here, he can tell us more. He is going to tell us more about this, and him writing this book during COVID, and helping a kid out there in Africa or elsewhere that is going to benefit from his in here. Now, what is the life code?
Well, that's a great question. Um, I specifically used the term codes because we live in a technologically advanced world. Everybody's got a mobile phone. We're constantly talking about coding and coding, and most of the innovative ideas and social media, whatever technology powers our world today, is built essentially on codes. Now,
Mm-hmm,
psychologists have said to us that, and psychiatrists have said to us in their studies that the human brain is like a mini computer. So that also provides a basis for my use of code. Now, life
mm-hmm,
codes are essentially those tiny little signals by which we ultimately live our lives. Now, I like to say that life does not come with a manual. So when you have a child, the doctor doesn't give you a manual, say, hey, this is how this child will navigate life. No,
mm-hmm,
life doesn't come with a manual. So it's imperative on every one of us to determine for ourselves how we would navigate the different areas of our lives, from finances to relationships to spirituality, health and wellness, personal growth, business, career. Nobody teaches you how to navigate any of these. You've got to learn how to navigate them. But I found out over time that regardless of the area of life that you're looking to navigate, three critical things are important in determining whether you will succeed in that
mm-hmm,
area of life or not. And what are these three things? It's the mindset, it's the behaviors, and it's the habits. So I have summarized life codes as mindsets, behaviors, and habits. So when a child is born into a family, what happens is the child is a clean slate ready to
mm-hmm,
be written upon by life. So the child doesn't come with any preconceived notion. A child is not jaded. Their eyes haven't seen anything. They're fresh. And so what happens is they begin to mop up all the information that they get from the adults around them. So they begin to, as we speak in the presence of a child, what we're doing is we're programming codes into the minds of the child, into the mind of the child. So
mm-hmm,
when parents or school teachers or religious leaders are talking or interacting in the presence of a child, what they're doing subliminally is they are imputing codes in that child. So the
mm-hmm,
child then begins to absorb these codes and it programs their mind. Now, as they grow, they utilize these codes to navigate the different areas of life. So when they go to school and they begin to become adults, they use all these codes, which are some of the behaviors that their parents that they saw in their parents or the adults in their life, some of the habits that they formed based on these behaviors, and the mindsets that their family or people around them, held when they were growing up. So they navigate their life based on this. Now, there would come a point in the life of every single individual where we would have to sit down and say, hey, wait, are these, am I happy with where I'm at in life? Could there be something better for me to achieve in life?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a better life than the one that I'm living? And if the answer is yes, the question is, so why am I not there yet? Why am I not living that flourishing life that I'm hoping that I could live? Now, some of the things we will begin to think about at this point is my habits and my behavior and my mindset helping me achieve my goal of success or maybe hindering me from achieving success? Now, when we start thinking that way, then we would realize that, oh, maybe all our lives we've carried a limiting belief, a belief that limits us and the way
Mm-hmm.
that we think. Now, that's the life code that I'm referring to there. So that life code subliminally, unconsciously drives us. So it's a typical example, just to put this in perspective. For instance, you have every time an opportunity comes your way, you get so excited. But when
Mm-hmm.
the time comes to take an action towards that opportunity, you develop cold feet and you ultimately let the opportunity pass you. And so maybe you continue to repeat the same behavior over time. Ultimately, when you sit down to do a realistic self assessment, what you might find is maybe you have a limiting belief that says that opportunities like this don't belong to people like me.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might get excited in the first, instance, but when it comes to taking action, moving towards that opportunity, then you begin to develop cold feet. So you don't know why you're doing it, but you're never able to achieve opportunities or to attain a certain opportunity because maybe you have a limiting belief that you've carried since you were a child that these types of opportunities are not for people like me. For some
Mm-hmm.
people, the limiting belief could be that, well, maybe women don't work in my family. That could be a limiting belief. Or maybe I don't deserve a seat at the table. So this is where life has put me, so I'm going to stay here. So there's so many different limiting beliefs. So what I did with cracking the life code is I helped the reader to understand what a limiting belief could be, understand how their behaviors might impact their lives and the different areas of their lives, and then teach them how to crack that code, break that limiting belief, break that behavior, and then replace them, because it's not enough to break a bad behavior. You have to replace them with new, positive, and stronger behaviors. And that's what the whole idea of cracking the life code is about.
Now that's beautiful. I like that. And then you talk about the three stages of life. Which are these three stages?
Yeah, that's awesome. There are three stages in my book, in the way that I see it. Think about a man: morning, afternoon, night. These are the
Mm-hmm.
three stages of life, and the MAN, interestingly, which represents man. So there's the morning time of life, which is M. There's the
Mm-hmm.
afternoon time of life, which is A, and there's the night time of life, which is N, just an acronym for man. So I broke life down into these three stages, right? The
Mm-hmm.
morning stage of life, I have talked extensively about it. It's a time when a child is born. The child
Mm-hmm.
is fresh. Everything, there's a lot of, parents are hoping that this child would probably press the next president. Oh, this might be the next, astronaut. This might be the next engineer. There's a lot of hopes in the morning. It's like when you're starting your day in the
Yeah.
morning. You have a lot of, and oh, I'm hoping this day is a great day. I'm hoping this day brings me, goodness and joy. That's the morning time of life. At this point, we're still learning. We're picking up codes where our mind's being programmed as a child. Now, there
Mm-hmm.
is afternoon time of life. The afternoon time of life is a time when we use every single signal and life code that we have built as a child. We now use them to drive our lives. This is when we have all the energy. It's the afternoon time of life. The sun is out. There's a lot of energy. The hustle and bustle of the society, of the streets. Everybody's going, because there's a lot of energy. You have had breakfast, there's energy, and so you're going out. It's the afternoon time of life. Most often, this is a time when many people might say they might be between the ages of 18 to maybe 35 or 40, depending on, you know, where we are. For some people, morning time might be sooner, later, afternoon might be sooner, later, and night might be sooner, later. But then the description of afternoon is when the lights up, the energy is high, you have all the strength as in your youth, so you can reach out for all the potentials within you. You can go for the goals, you can achieve
Mm-hmm.
anything you want to achieve. And then there comes the nighttime of life. The nighttime typically is when we're completely exhausted. We have used all our energy during the day. That's
Mm-hmm.
when we have become maybe granddad and grandma, and maybe our health is beginning to fade. It's time when our body is beginning to shut down slowly because we've worked so hard during the afternoon time of life. I like to say that your afternoon will determine how you go to sleep at night. So your afternoon time of life will determine how you would enjoy your nighttime. So if you used your afternoon very carefully, that's your youth age, and you invested a lot in yourself, you invested a lot in your career, and you built a life of success. When time comes for nighttime of life, you will not be struggling in the streets looking to make an income. What you worked for during your afternoon time of life will now be working for you during your nighttime of life. So, this nighttime of life, all we need to do at this stage of life is to kick back and enjoy the reward of our labor. And then there's only one more assignment that I ask people in the nighttime of life is that every lesson they have learned and every life code that they have cracked, that they shift, that they transfer these codes to the next generation. So they
Mm-hmm.
teach their children and they teach their children's children how to navigate life with the best mindsets, the best behaviors, and the best habits.
Wow, wow, wow. Let me ask the audience something that I usually see on Facebook, WhatsApp, on the social platforms. People asking themselves this interesting question. Hey, you listener, how old were you when you discovered that morning, afternoon, and night spell the word man? Oh, I was this old today when I discovered that's man, morning, afternoon, and night. And that comes only from Babs. Thank you for that. I'll
Thank
remember
you.
that. Now, for those who are joining us here, we are with Babs Faseesin. I haven't mentioned that name before because I was fearing I'm going to get it wrong.
It's okay. You did well, actually.
Thank you. I hope you noticed that all along.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are with Babs Faseesin, and we are talking about cracking the life code. Now, Babs has written a book on that title, Cracking the Life Code. And what he shared with us so far is life changing. He's told us, man, uh, spells afternoon, morning, afternoon, and night. Okay. And more than that, he has a lot in that book. Now, if you may not be aware, or if you happen to go and pick on that book at Amazon, you'll discover that so far we have touched 10% of that book. So imagine what could be in all the book if you go and get that book. And at the end of this show, we will share a link where you can go and follow Babs or go and get the book. Now, I believe that life is not just about birth, living, and dying. We are on this place, on this planet, on this globe for a purpose. Do you believe the same? And if so,
Yes.
what's the purpose anyway?
Yeah. I mean, that's a very beautiful question. Nobody is on this planet by chance. I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe that. I know people, there's so many different beliefs out there, but I believe very strongly that there is no coincidence in birth. And I believe that every single individual is carefully curated to achieve a specific goal on earth. Now, this is how I like to describe it. If you're a hunter, seeing as both of us are from Africa, there's a lot of hunting in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the hunters, typically the hunter, they carry a bag, right? And in the bag, they have different arrows, different tools by which they go to hunt. Some of them might have a long range gun, they might have a short range gun, they might have arrows, and bows, different sizes and shapes of arrows. That's a
Mm-hmm.
professional hunter. So when they go into the wild, they use different types of arrows to catch different types of prey. So if a prey is in close proximity, the hunter might use a different arrow from a prey that's in a farther distance. Now, let's
Mm-hmm.
think about it this way. I believe very strongly that every one of us, we are like arrows of different shapes and sizes. So our voice, our height, our color, our status, educational background, family history, everything is carefully put together to make us the perfect solution to a specific problem on earth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the arrow here is every one of us. Some arrows are short, some arrows are long, some arrows are thin, some are thick. So everyone is unique in their very selves. And I believe that I believe the creator is the hunter. So when the creator finds a prey on earth, the creator goes into his bag to find the sharpest arrow in his bag to get that prey. So when the creator, who is the hunter here, thinks that there's a big problem on the planet that's a prey, so
Mm-hmm.
he goes into his wallet and picks a perfect arrow to get that prey, and he shoots that arrow into the planet Earth, and that arrow is born as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a purpose for every one of us being on the planet. And I believe that this purpose is essentially so everyone could ultimately achieve that one thing they were created for. The
Mm-hmm.
question is, what is the purpose then? Now, I believe our purpose is the primary reason we were created. It's the primary problem we're here to solve. It's the one thing we're here to give to the world and make this world a better place. So the question therefore is, how then do I even determine if I've discovered my purpose? I like to often say that one of all the discoveries in the world, one of the most important discovery you would ever have to do is the discovery of your purpose. And I also say that the discovery of purpose is not a guarantee of its fulfillment. So it's not enough to discover your purpose within the time that you're on earth. What's more important is, having discovered your purpose, you've got to make effort to ensure that you fulfill your purpose while you're on earth. So people might ask me, so Babs, how do I even discover my purpose? I like to say that it's for me, the way it's worked for me. So many people have different hypotheses on how to discover your purpose, but how it's worked for me is this simple. Take a look at your life from childhood to where you are today and ask yourself questions. What were some of the things that interested me the most? What were some of the things that I did very seamlessly? What are some of the things that when I start thinking or talking about, I can go endlessly, even without food or money, and I would do it selflessly. Now, when you think about those interests and desires that have always captured your attention since childhood up onto where you are today, now look deeply at those interests. Just make a note of them. And then as you look deeply at those interests, you would find that there's a thread that holds all of those together. Now, that thread can guide you in the direction of what your purpose could be. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
at the age of 6, I showed up on television reciting poems. At the age of 17, I had organized my first conference. So by the time I was in college, I was doing a lot of public speaking and I was the student leader and I was encouraging other students. So I could already tell from 6 to 17, when I had my first conference, to when I was in college, that there's a part of my life that's about encouraging people, challenging people to achieve greatness. So I
Mm-hmm.
already can now see that that's one thread that runs through all of my interests. So if you want to get me talking, look how passionate I'm talking right now. If you want to get me talking, just ask me how I could make people better, how I could make people greater, and I know that that's I can do that forever, even if I'm not getting paid for it. So that's
Mhm.
how I knew that. Wow, my purpose is really to challenge people to greatness. So that's one way we could discover our purpose.
Wow. And I like that you say the greatest discovery. Now, when you mentioned that, I was started thinking of what we read in the history books. They discovered America, they discovered India, they discovered, and wasn't it there all the time?
That's right.
They were there all the time. Now, the greatest potential that could be in the listener or the viewer may not be have been discovered up to now. And all you have to do is sit down, reflect, and I tell you, go get the book by Babs and read it, because it's going to be one helpful bit that you're going to use on your personal development. And discover yourself, discover your potential, discover your gifts. Look at that line that is connecting all of them, that is going to show you what your purpose here on earth is about. And for sure, there's quite much we can talk with Babs. So much, so much. I foresee. And as you say, we can give you the whole day, and I know you won't get exhausted on something to say.
Yeah.
But as for today, we are almost coming to the end of this show. And I felt like we could keep going and going and going because there's so much. But let's get here. Now, if people want to connect with you and get to learn more, get to get the book, how do they connect with you?
Yeah, we are available on crackinthelife.com. We can always receive emails also at help@crackinthelife.com. Always, we're always ready to receive any inquiries. We're always ready to help. We have coaches who help every individual who's seeking help in one way or the other. We're building a community. The community is a community of people who are interested in becoming 1% better each day. So it's that's the kind of people that we're helping. I'm also very active on social media, Instagram, Facebook. It's Babs Faseesin or Cracking the Life Code.
Wow, that's www.crackingthelifecode.com. Go and connect with Babs Faseesin and enjoy more insight from him and get help in discovering your passion and get to improve yourself 1% per day. Why don't you say 10% every day? Just 1% only. Is that all I require to improve on?
That's right. I mean, let's take it baby step, one at
Yeah.
a time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about it for today. But before we go, we'd like Babs to leave us with a few words that we should always remember. What are they, Babs?
Well, I mean, honestly, the one thing that I want to just leave us with today is to ensure that while we take care of everything else, that we remember to take care of ourselves. We know that we live in a very busy world. We want to take care of our kids, our education, our business, our career, and all that. So many things to take care of. But please don't ever forget to put yourself first on that list. So self care is what I'm recommending today. Take some time out to care for yourself because if your body is weak, your mind cannot do so much. So I know that I talk a lot about mindset. I know I said you should sharpen your mindset and but then if your body is weak, your mind can't do much. So I challenge you to spend some time to care for yourself while you're looking to advance everybody else around you.
Wow. And that agrees to it. It's something that I heard today. Don't break yourself trying to build others. Yeah, take care of yourself. Those words are coming from Babs. And we really appreciate you and your time here with us, Babs. And it's quite an honor. We thank you. We also thank all the viewers, all the listeners, even those who get to listen to this podcast after we are through on the podcast platforms that we are going to have it on. We appreciate you taking your time and listening. Remember to share these with all your friends so that they can also get the insight that we've got here. So, once again, thanks, Babs.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that has been Babs Faseesin, and I am your host, Anthony Morore, and together we are saying bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.